we'll run through this next one really quick here. We're going to go through our top 10 games of 2002. This is a little project that I've been doing. I want to go through every year. I want to go for, well, not every year, but from 2000 up to 2022, and then kind of lead up into, the top 10 for 2023, or however we end up doing that here on the channel. And yeah, I want to create like a top 100 list of all time at some point. I find that challenge intriguing. But we're gonna run through this real quick because the show is already really really long. So let's just rapid fire through these bad boys, and we'll do five apiece here. I'll start off with my five. I'm gonna give a shout out to Star Wars Bounty Hunter. I know this game definitely didn't receive the critical fanfare, the critical love that I think it deserves, but just the jetpack platforming, the great standalone story here, finding, the different wanted people out in the world, just great weapon variety, a solid challenge. And yeah, I really, really dug Star Wars Bounty Hunter as a kid. I loved doing my jetpack platforming where I'm trying to gauge if I have enough juice in my jetpack to get from one destination to the next, and failing multiple times trying to do that. It was just I loved it as a kid, and I even replayed it recently, and I still think it's damn fun to me.
Awesome, love it. But first of all, I'm going to shout out, and I should say these aren't like, I can't speak for Brandon's picks, but mine are not necessarily going to be the critical ones. They're just ones that personally,
for sure,
I absolutely adore from this year. So the first one, which is beloved, is Time Splitters 2. So Time Splitters 2, first-person shooter from Free Radical, I believe.
I believe so.
It's just a quirky, cartoony first-person shooter that very much at the time people wanted more, something that played like GoldenEye. Time Splitters 2 was it. It had a really cool it had a really cool story mode where you went through different eras and time periods and locations around the world, which was super cool. But it was the local multiplayer that really hit home because you could play on a whole bunch of cartoony maps. You could play as the most wacky characters with a whole bunch of different weapons, and you just do your death matches, your team death matches, capture the flags, etc. But I have such a fondness for Time Splitters too, because I used to play with a bunch of friends back in the day, and we would just swap up our characters and have a good old little shootout. But that one's still a blast to play today. So
yes, yeah, I really hope that we see more from that Time Splitters game that they have in development. But yeah, that's a great shout out there. For me, number 4, I'm going with Resident Evil 0. And this is going to be my controversial pick for the show. And I also I got to clear up. If I throw top 10 best games of 2002 in the title, that's for the damn algorithm, guys. These are our favorite games of 2002. I don't know what you want from me. Top 10 favorite games of 2002 is not going to get searched in the algorithm. So we're doing top 10 best. These are the best games to us. But
yeah. That's fair. That's honest. It's fair. They're the best to us. They're top 10 to us. Dang it.
Hey, you guys, if y'all are searching through YouTube, you know how the damn algorithm works. We're fighting up against the big dog, so we got to use the algorithm to our advantage from time to time. But
there you go.
I'm throwing out Resident Evil 0. This is my controversial pick because talk about this isn't going to go over well. I like it more than Resident Evil 1, the remake.
Oh boy. All right.
I do, man. I loved swapping between Billy and Rebecca, and I thought it made for like on the fly puzzle solving. And I thought that was really unique where one character could be low in health. So you make them stay back. One character, you have Billy go out and grab resources for Rebecca, or Rebecca go out and grab resources for Billy, bring them back, throwing away the items on the fly. Like that. I thought that it made for really interesting on the fly puzzle solving, a very, very challenging game, but that dynamic was new and fresh to me, and just swapping between the different characters. Like, I don't think it gets enough love. Resident Evil 0 the story is wonky as hell. So wonky. It probably didn't need to be like this main canon entry. I do think it provides a cool backstory before the big events of Raccoon City, but I don't know. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it more than Resident Evil 1. I know that's not popular, but I did.
Hey, it's your choice. That's the great thing, right? This is our favorite picks, and some of that could be nostalgic. Some of that could be just because that's what we like more. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely, man.
And this is going to be even more true in what I'm about to tell you. No one's probably going to agree with this if you talk about top things, but I don't care because it's one of my favorite. Scooby-Doo, Night of 100 Frights. I can't tell you how much fondness I have for this game from 2002. I love Scooby-Doo. I love things all dark and spooky. If you combine those together into a Halloween type spooky game where you explore wharfs and fisheries and haunted mansions and haunted mazes and things like that, it's not a great game. It's not even a good game, but you play as the Scooby Gang and you explore these fantastic locations. The music is on point, and I just have so much nostalgia for this game that when I think of past games, this reminds me of that year and it reminds me of that time in my life. I have it sitting on my shelf over here somewhere. I just recently replayed it and beat it. It wasn't even that
Nice.
fun. It was actually really brutal trying to get through a lot of these boss stages, but it was a top game for me, and I would always recommend it. And just one of the best Scooby Doo games. But hey, it's one of my favorite of 2002. So like it or don't, whatever. Here we are.
Yeah, yeah. I went back and bought those recently on, I believe, the GameCube, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
Yeah, they're on GameCube.
Yep, I got three of them sitting over there on GameCube. So yeah, it's yeah, yeah. I played a little bit of them. I need to check them out again because they were fun for the little bit I dove into there. But
Yep.
number 3 for me, this is a tricky one because I don't know if I should qualify it, but if you don't want me to qualify it, here's what I'll do. I'll throw in Sly Cooper as my number 5, bump Star Wars Bounty Hunter to 4, and so forth and so on. If you don't want to, if people want to get too technical, I got to cover my bases here. So
No, you don't. It's your video. Do what you want.
it's tricky because I enjoyed this as a kid a little bit, but it got a remake in 2020, and that is Mafia 1.
Oh.
So but here's the thing. So this is why it's tricky, because the reason I love this game is the story, and it's the same story from the original. So like, I feel like that should let it qualify. I think the gameplay improvements are obvious in the remake, especially for like the racing section and stuff. But the story, the ending is crazy, and how that leads straight into 2, dude, that ending is like top 10 endings in video game history. I love that ending so much. I think the story is incredible, and yeah, it just the new coat of paint that was added with the remake really helped it. But I did play it a good bit as a kid. It was just really tough for me as a kid. I had a hard time getting through it. So tough to put it in here, but I still think it deserves a spot. Like I said, you can kind of rearrange that a little bit, throw Sly Cooper in at number 5 if people aren't pleased with my pick there for Mafia 1. But that story at the time, like, to think that they connected all of that together at the time is really, really impressive. So yeah, I'm going to go Mafia 1 at number 3.
That's a good show, man. I don't know why I don't see why you wouldn't slot it there. It doesn't matter if there's a remake or not, or even if you didn't complete at the time or not. It's still, if it's a game that from that time was what you consider to be one of the best, like it doesn't matter if there's a remake or not. It was still a game at that time before a remake. So
Yeah,
I mean,
and you're talking about too a game at the time, like, you know, that was before we really started seeing like constant GTA clones popping up. Like, that was a fresh, new, interesting idea, like a really, really gritty take on that open world action adventure, you know, approach. It was very, very different than GTA, which a lot of the clones that came out were trying to be GTA. This
Yeah.
felt so much more subdued, much more subtle, much more like classic gangster film-esque in its nature. And yeah, Mafia 1, it great game. I highly, if you're going to play it, obviously play the remake, but yeah.
Interestingly, I have the Mafia 1 remake pinned in my Xbox like dashboard just to play that. So interestingly, it's been there that I want to start touching on that more. So there you go.
And you can get through it in like 15, 20 hours. It's not crazy at all. It's not crazy at all. The world is just like set dressing. You don't have to go off and, you know, explore thousands of kilometers. Like, it's just, you drive through it and kind of get the backdrop, the feel of this mafioso world.
Love it. All right, man. I'm going to go in number 3. It's going to be Kingdom Hearts, the first one. So I adore the Kingdom Hearts series, all the convoluted nature and everything. Now, when I played this game back in the day, and I'll be straight up, I didn't finish at the time. I got stuck on the Cerberus boss fight in the Hercules world, never finished it. I still haven't finished Kingdom Hearts 1 to this day, but I beat Kingdom Hearts 2 like 4 times. But the original Kingdom Hearts, when that came out, I was not a Final Fantasy fan. Like I played some of them, but I just wasn't a Final Fantasy fan. But again, you throw in that classic Disney stuff, Nightmare Before Christmas, you know, why am I forgetting everything about Disney? Anyway, you throw in all the classic Disney stuff and I was sold. The whole idea could have completely fell apart. Because at the time, you have to remember the idea of like Final Fantasy, this beloved RPG series mixing with Disney shenanigans, like it's cool now and people love it now. But back then people were like, this is not going to work. This is just going to be so bizarre. but the way they interspersed it into the worlds and the narrative, even as confusing it's just charming beyond heck. And I still go back and play the first Kingdom Hearts. It's on my PS5 to like play the PS4 version and beat it. But man, at the time that was just, I just love that game and I love the series, but the second one's my favorite, but that's not 2002. So
Yeah.
you have any experience with Kingdom Hearts? I don't know if it's anything that you'd care for, but
no, I might have rented it and played a little bit of it, but I don't really, I have no memories of Kingdom Hearts whatsoever. Okay. Yeah, it's once again just not really up my street, but I do definitely respect it, and I respect that it goes for broke with those stories, man. It really tries to go all out. But
all right.
Number 2 for me, I'm going with SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. You guys know, anytime there's a wrestling game released in any given year up until probably 2009, it's going to be on my list. And this was such a humongous improvement over just bring it in every way. The story was so good. Here was like the first, what I would consider great wrestling story, tons of decision making. It was much longer than just your hour long, just bring it story. You had the brand split draft going on. It was visually stunning. The mechanics were overhauled. It was just such a great game that me and my buddies played for hundreds and hundreds of hours. It doesn't get enough credit because Here Comes the Pain is generally considered like one of, if not the greatest wrestling game ever, that came to 2003, I believe. So I'll be talking about that on the next one. But it definitely laid the groundwork for Here Comes the Pain to improve on it and iterate on it. But this was what laid the groundwork for that. So it should get more respect. Shut Your Mouth, number 2 for sure for me.
Cool, man. I will trust you fully on that. Last time I played a wrestling game was the N64 ones, which I adored back in the day when I liked wrestling as a kid, but I trust you on that. And there you go. So play that if you're looking for some 2002 WW something reaction. I know, I'll learn. Listen, it's our first show. I'll learn about all the wrestling stuff. Give me time, man.
I don't follow it anymore either, man. I can't really keep you up to speed on it, but hit me with your number 2.
All right. My number 2 is going to be Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Again, at the time, people were so appalled by Nintendo taking this cartoony, cell shaded direction. Oh my gosh, how dare you switch from this like realistic look? Because one of the first trailers showed off for a Zelda at the time was like this hyper realistic one that kind of turned into be Twilight Princess. I'm not a Zelda fan anymore. I'm just not my cup of tea anymore. But back in the day, Wind Waker was my jam. I'll be honest, I've still never finished the game to this day. A lot of these games I just never finished, but I'll replay parts of them over and over again. But just the opening of that game and the music kicking in and the way you go across the ocean and the Zelda tunes from Koji Kondo plays, like it brings up so much emotion for me. I remember buying the expensive like soundtrack from Japan at the time. And it's just, if you like the Zelda games, Wind Waker is just phenomenal. And I still have it up on my shelf. I kind of want to get a Wii U just to play the remake because they haven't brought the remake to Nintendo Switch, but it's a high class game. And in my opinion, probably the best Zelda game, even though I've never finished it. So
yeah, it's I kind of want to go back to some of those classic Zelda games because that's a whole different tangent. We'll save the tangents because we're going long as shit. Let me go ahead and get to my number 1. I'm going to go with Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Obviously, everybody that knows me knows that's going to be number 1. Ray Liotta, it says Tommy in the game. You had the introduction of flying missions for the first time in, I don't want to say any open world game ever, but I don't know if it was ever in any open world game before this. At least like open world games styled like this, which, open world games styled like this really just came out the year before in 2001 with GTA 3. So it was just a game changer, flying around in that open world, purchasing property, kind of becoming this kingpin of Vice City. Like it was just, we put in the cheats nonstop. We would pass the controller back and forth, getting the wanted levels up, taking the boats out for a spin in Vice City. Like it was just fucking phenomenal, man. Just absolutely phenomenal. A game changer in 2002. And it's by far my number 1.
Nice. Good shout out. All right. Well, my last one for my number 1 is going to be Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. Adore this game. I don't have too much to say. People that know horror and know that time period already know that even though Silicon Knights went south, Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem at the time really upped the ante when it comes to the psychological elements and just the way it messed with like your TV and your sound and your save games. That wouldn't really fly today because you can Google anything, but back in the day, it was revolutionary. And you explored different time periods, and you had this haunted mansion story, but then it broke out into different historical characters that you played as. But it all came back to this Roivas mansion and the creepy goings on there. I hope one day Nintendo does something to bring it back, some sort of a remake, remaster like they did with Metroid Prime. But it's a phenomenal horror game, and yeah, that's my number one for 2002. Years are flying by.
Yeah, it's bizarre that's like one of the forgotten gems from the GameCube generation that just doesn't seem to be getting ported or added to any sort of collection, or just really bizarre. But yeah, those are our top 10 games from 2002.
Indeed.
So hit us in the comments with your own if you would like.